All right, hey teen. Today we're talking about powers of I. So what happens when you multiply I times itself a whole bunch of times? So we're starting with our definition, just that I to the first power would just be I, right? Anything to the first power is just the same thing. From there, we also know from our definition that I times I, right, or I squared, would be -1, right? And that's just going to be our definitions today. So really what we're saying here is every two i's, or I squared, is going to equal a -1. So we're looking for sets of two i's. So if I have I to the third power here, that's like I times I times I. And we have two of them, so that's going to be -1. And we have that I left over. So we can see here we have -1 times I. And that's going to leave us with just -I. Okay, we can do the same thing for each one. So out of the fourth would be I times I times I times I, which of course makes two pairs, right, which we can see here, I squared and I squared. Each of the I squareds is going to be -1. So we really have -1 times -1, and that's going to give us +1. Why don't you pause the video and go ahead and see if you can fill out the rest of this. All right, so when we look here again, we're looking at by I to the fifth power. So I really have 5 i's. And we know that I squared is the magic number, right? Because I squared is going to make us those groups of -1. So I really have an I squared here and an I squared there with one I left over. So I have a -1, right, times the -1 times an I. We know -1 times -1 is just regular +1, so we're left with just I as our simplified value. Right? If I was to do the same thing, I'm going to make groups of 2. I have 6 of them here, so I have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. That's -1 times -1 times -1. That's going to be -1 times -1 is +1 times the -1 over here would be -1. Right, so as you continue, you should start to see a pattern, and that's what we're looking for. Then you're going to answer the questions at the bottom. Ask questions. Thanks, guys.